Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic? Let's do it. Serious. When's the last time that you were afraid, like a child in a dark room? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I woke up from an evening nap to find the TV on. A couple weeks ago, I messed up my back. I had nearly collapsed a lung, and muscle relaxers had turned me into a napping zombie. There was no reason the TV should have been on. There was no reason it could have been turned on. I stopped dead in my tracks and grabbed a knife, cautiously opening the closet doors, hoping each time that no one was hiding. Knowing if someone was hiding, I was too weak in my condition to defend myself. Hell, I'm 5'3" and 106 pounds. I didn't even stand a chance before the injury. I walked the entire apartment before I felt safe that no one was in my place. I had a bad habit of leaving the back door unlocked while I was home for my friends who would drop by unannounced. I no longer have that habit. When my 3-year-old broke away from my grip at a parking lot and headed between the cars into the lane, I could see a car coming way too fast for a parking lot. I managed to reach her collar and yank her back just as the car whizzed by, none the wiser. If my fingers were shorter, or she had run just a moment sooner, I'm sure she would have been hit. It was sometime in the last quarter of college. I just bombed a midterm and started thinking about what I was going to do about it. I started thinking about what my plans are once I get a degree, what I wanted to do for a living, and all that jazz. I realized that I had no idea what to do or what I wanted to do. I'm paying thousands of dollars and gaining debt for what reasons? I'm truly terrified about what my future holds. We had just pulled our boat into the dock and tied it off when my girlfriend grabbed the life vest off my 4-year-old daughter. Mama started walking to the cabin to put the gear away. I turned my back to pull the key out of the ignition, and I hear this loud splash. My child is somewhere in the dark lake water. I dove face first between the boat and dock and bumped her with my arm. Her eyes are cutting onions right now. She looked at me as I pulled her up, eyes open and coughing. I'm overprotective of her to begin with, being adopted. That girl is the only person I know I'm related to. She's my anchor. I ran to the cabin with her in my arms, sobbing and flipping out on the girlfriend for that vest. Please remember to leave the vest on until you're on dry land. Bad shit can and does happen. Sometime after the Snowden leaks, I was randomly browsing the web, and a realization hit me that everything I've been doing online is tied to me, and some program is making a profile out of me. Totally unrelated things like comments on Reddit, YouTube, Facebook, chats on Skype and Messenger, things that I look up on Google, Bing, or whatever else, are being thrown together and analyzed. It's scary how easily you can find out about a person just from their name and email address, and the NSA has tools to gather even more information. That feeling that someone is watching you and you can't do anything about it is truly scary. Last year I was staying after a class to ask the professor about a grade I got on a paper I wasn't satisfied with. Another student was doing the same and was already talking to her, so I was just going to wait until he was done. People are shuffling out of the class, and soon it's just me, him, and our professor, who are explaining to this guy that no, he can't rewrite the paper, but he can take her suggestions into account on the next paper and can do some of the extra credit to boost his grade. The guy is not happy with the answer and starts to escalate. He starts to sharply criticize the professor's teaching ability. As he gets closer to her, his volume level increases with each word. She keeps trying to get a word in, but he says things like, let me finish, no, let me finish, and continues with all the reasons why he should be allowed a special exemption, get to rewrite the paper, and why the old grade should not stand. This goes on for 15 minutes, but it felt like forever. My pulse is racing, and I'm getting that evolutionary fight or flight response. To put this into perspective, My professor is probably 28 years old and 5'3". She's giving me looks over this guy's shoulder like, please don't leave, which I regret to say I thought about a few times. He's not a big guy, but his body language is very intimidating. If you know what I'm getting at. I don't know how to describe his words and his actions, but it's getting awry. Like he's not taking no for an answer. He's saying something like, you have no business teaching, you're not listening, when she finally cuts him off and tells him he's becoming very combative and is making her feel uncomfortable. I think he responded with someone like, no, I understand. No, it's just that you're not listening, or something. He was gone. She tells him he needs to leave before this escalates further, or something. I don't know exactly what she said, but it made him finally give up and leave in a huff. After he leaves, she gives me a look and goes, was that not the most stressful situation you've ever been in? We both agreed to leave for her office because we mutually thought that this guy was the type to come back and shoot us. She thanks me for staying, and we sort of half-assed go over my paper. Neither of us are fit to be having this conversation. We're just done and need to go home. I had blood coursing through me, heart pounding, hands sweating, and eyes darting symptoms all effing day. Like literally for a 24-hour period. He scared the shit out of me. And it's one thing to consciously grasp what a dangerous situation would be like. It's another for your body to make you physically feel the danger. I visited Crystalhurst Caves in Kent, England with my SO and parents. I'm 21, and my fear of the dark consumes me. Anyway, it was supposed to be a harmless tour with a few ghost stories here and there and maybe the odd echo demonstration. Sure, it sounds harmless with the right amount of light. We arrived. We sat and waited for the tour to begin. Our group was called, and our tour guide gave out a very dim lantern to each family. Then my heart picked up. As we descended 144 feet below natural light, the air turned into a stagnant chill, a perpetual shiver of 10 degrees Celsius. I managed half the tour. I was thinking only of how I would navigate back to the emergency door if I became lost, and then the tour guide stops. He explains that in this place, 2 men were found fully unclothed in 1985, with their names carved into the wall beside them. My anxiety was becoming unbearable. I was at the back of the group, clenching my girlfriend's hand like I had never done. I was looking around me because I wanted to tell myself nothing was watching me from the pitch black behind me. I had this feeling twice. The tour guide then proceeded to take away all of our lanterns and told us to all place our backs against the wall for a few minutes. He walked off with our lanterns, singing a ring around the roses. The reverberation of his voice sent pins and needles to the top of my neck. Waves of thoughts began entering my head, such as, what if he actually walks off and leaves us? All the light was gone, just nothing. Perpetual darkness, alone with the desperate desire to turn on a light. My girlfriend could hear the distress in my breathing as I began to inhale and exhale extremely fast. Remember, my phobia of the dark consumes me. All I can remember is that it was silent for about 15 seconds, just completely dead, nothing. The tour guide then began banging and screaming as hard as he could on a metal plate that miners used in the 1800s to communicate between caves. The tour guide came back and laughed, asking us if we enjoyed it. In the light of the lanterns, I could see only a few people who weren't bothered. They were not human, no way. The first time I hyperventilated on TripAdvisor from a lot of people. I lost my daughter for half an hour, longest half hour of my life. She was about 2 and had just started sleeping in a big kid bed. I came home from a night shift at about 6 a.m. I went in to check on her, and she wasn't in there. No big deal. She probably climbed into bed with Dad. Wasn't there. I woke up my husband, and we then looked everywhere. I couldn't find her. Called 911 in hysterics. My husband is out in the freezing cold, crying and calling her name. The horrible thoughts that go through your head are terrifying. I finally found her underneath some comforters in her closet, dead asleep. I couldn't function for the rest of the day. It's very emotionally exhausting. Sitting in a bar one Friday night, two people started arguing, and one of them leaves. Whatever. 15 minutes later, the guy comes back with a gun and opens fire on the entire bar. He just opened the door and started shooting. Two people were wounded, another bled out on the floor and died. None of the people who got shot were arguing with the gunman. Gunman got arrested a few minutes later after he ran down the street to a store and tried to steal a car. But there was a kid in it, so he didn't. But he left the gun with the kid. Edit. This bar is on the same street as the police station, maybe half a mile away. When the guy ran down the street to the store, he ran toward the police station. I usually carry a pistol, but I didn't that night. It bugged me for a while to think about it. What if I did have it that night? But the more I thought about it, it happened so fast that I don't think I could have done a damn thing. It was done in like 3 seconds. I was a security guard working an overnight shift at a Cadillac dealership. I'm 6'2", big, and also fat, white guy, and I drove a golf cart for 12 hours a night, 3 nights a week. Easiest money in my life, except I would get a new, crazy, drunk or drugged person on the lot probably once every couple months. Around 2 to 3 a.m. one night, a strange little guy, looks like he's in his late teens to early 20s, he couldn't have been more than 5 feet tall, and it looked like he weighed 100 pounds or so, wearing a backpack, comes on the lot and tells me that a salesman promised him a car. I told him to come back during daylight hours to get it, because under no circumstances was I allowed to let him take a car off the lot. He keeps arguing and trying to persuade me to let him pick an Escalade and take it. At no point during this was I even slightly intimidated by this little guy. Eventually, I tell him to leave or I will have to call the cops. And strangely enough, he says, "Go ahead, I'll explain it to them, and they'll let me take my new car." So I call the cops and explain, and they're on their way. I guess this is a low priority call, because it's a good 20 minutes before I see a cop car pull up, and their blue and red flashers are off. It was during those 20 minutes that I had my true fear moment. I've informed that crazy, skinny, almost midget that the cops are on their way, and I've asked him to stay away from the cars. After around 10 minutes of waiting, he waves over to me to get me to come talk to him. I drive my little golf cart over to him, hoping he has decided to avoid the cops and will leave. But instead he says, "I just remembered, I've got proof, a signed note." He starts to take off his backpack and open it up. That is my fear moment. The moment when a person that all evidence points towards being crazy, who seems to be absolutely certain he's leaving this lot in an Escalade for free, starts to reach into the bag. I had been a security guard for like 6 years, and that was the only time I'd ever feared for my own safety. I start walking backwards from him, and while his hand is still in the bag, as calmly as I can, say, "Hey, proof or not, the cops are already on their way. You'll have to show them, and then the cops can show me." He's not happy to hear that, but he closes his backpack, sits there, and waits for the cops. When the cops get there, before they have a chance to talk to the guy, I drive right up to the gate and greet them, warn them about the backpack, and ask them to take him away from me. The two of them sort of start to flank around him, and the one on the left and one on the right. One starts to talk to him to try to figure him out, and then after a little back and forth, the little guy says, "Here, I have a note in my backpack." Before he could start to unzip the zipper, the talking cop shouts, "Stop!" And both cops have their hands on their holstered but unclipped guns. The talking cop firmly says, "You're not leaving here with a car tonight. The guard has asked you to leave, and you are now trespassing. If you do not leave now, we'll have to place you under arrest." Crazy little guy relents, and as the cop is walking him back to the edge of the property, he tells him that if he comes back, he'll be arrested for trespassing. The second cop speaks for the first time and tells me if this guy comes back tonight, call 911 on site and stay away from him, and they'll come back and take him to jail. So yeah, that was my piddly-ass fear moment, and even 4 years later, I remember every bit of it clearly. It gave me a brand new understanding of the danger that cops face every time someone reaches for something that they can't see. I mean, I was kind of invested in this story. I kind of want to know, did the little guy get the Cadillac or not? I feel a little shortchanged. I slipped, not tripped, and fell off the edge in Big Sur. Everything was pitch black, and all I heard was my boyfriend yell, "Oh my God." I tumbled down, didn't feel pain, but was extremely terrified at what the outcome would be. Luckily, there was a tree that caught my fall. Luckily, my fall was only 20 feet down and not hundreds. When the rescue team got to me, they kept telling me how I was lucky. There were no broken bones, no fractures or sprains, only minor scrapes. I was just thankful to be alive. Throwaway. I'm scared right now. I am at a law school in New York. Come from a blue-collar or poor family, very down on our luck at the moment. I have no more money to finish up the finals. Cars will be unpaid, late rent, food. My dad got cancer a few months ago, is uninsured, and his medical bills are going to kill him if the cancer doesn't. Mom lost her job over the summer and is running out of unemployment in 2 weeks. My younger brother is having a baby in a few months, What little my parents can scrape up, he needs way more than I do. I am effing scared. I'm scared of failing. And I can't ask for help because everyone in my family is doing a lot worse than me. I did well this past semester, top of my class, finalist in some trial competitions and whatnot. When people look at me, they think my life is perfect. I do well in school, have a gorgeous girlfriend, lots of friends, and I'm always smiling and joking. Inside, I'm effing terrified that I'm going to lose everything and how I'm going to eat it in a few days. I'm afraid. I don't know if this was what you were looking for, but the lingering, intense feeling of unease hit me. Sorry for ranting, I just needed to put some of this shit in words. I know people have it way, way worse than I do. Plenty of people I know do, but I'm really scared. My family was on vacation. It was the first family reunion I'd ever been to. I was on break from college. Everyone decided to go tubing on a river with some light rapids. Everything was fine until we accidentally missed the point where we were supposed to get out. It was really poorly marked. There was a larger set of falls up ahead. It wasn't huge, but it was a definite series of drops. Most of them managed to get to shore before the fall because one person grabbed an overhanging tree and formed a human chain. The water was shallow at the top of the falls, but very rapid and strong. You couldn't just stand up and walk out. The current would sweep you off your feet. I was the furthest away, and my aunt lost her grip, resulting in me spinning and going over the falls in an uncontrolled manner. The tube flipped as it went over, sending me over into surprising deep and turbulent water at the bottom. The river narrowed and made a right at the bottom of the falls. I'm a decent swimmer, and I've gone over in whitewater rapids before. Previously, I had been in whitewater with a life vest and lifeguards stationed at strategic locations along the river Class 3 falls on a popular river in peak tourist season. When they see someone go over, they throw you a rope and then pull you to shore. All you have to do is reach out when you hear rope and then hold on tight. But on this occasion, we'd been told that the river was calm and that no one would need vests. Anyway, I came up underneath the tube, which had a net in the middle. It wasn't the sort of donut with a hole that you could fall through. The net closed the hole. I couldn't get it off my head. Everything was dark. I bobbed under the water as the river pulled me around. I definitely inhaled, or at least swallowed, water. I felt it happen, and then I felt my system freak out. I vomited repeatedly while treading water in the dark with something on my head. That was the worst part. I vomited while trying to swim or tread water, and suddenly realized that this had become a very dangerous situation. Then I felt slick boulders slip past my feet as the river straightened out and got shallower, and the rapids calmed a little. I managed to shove the tube hard enough to flip out of me. I grabbed the handle, hauled myself up into it, and shook uncontrollably. My dad caught up to me at that point. He had run along the river. He swam out to me and pulled me back to the shoreline a little ways down the stream. I shook so hard I couldn't stand for a little bit, and I bawled uncontrollably. My extended family didn't get it. They said I was barely under, but it felt like an eternity to me. I was nauseous from the adrenaline rush for hours afterwards. My parents are both in medicine. Mom kept a close eye on me all day. At one point, she got me a Coke. I remember feeling ridiculous and angry at the same time because my hands shook so badly that I had to ask her to open it up for me. When Dad returned the tubes to the rental location, another family with small children were there, asking about the river. The salesman told me the family that it was very calm with no drops and no need for helmets or life vests. I told my dad I had made some interesting and colorful statements to the contrary. The other family chose not to rent tubes that day. The river smelled like sulfide because of the hot springs that fed into it. Later that day, the family went to the hot spring baths. The mere smell of that sulfur made me panic again. I hid in the hotel room while my extended family complained that I was being antisocial. The entire rest of the trip I felt angry, afraid, and nauseous. Anytime I caught a whiff of the hot springs or overheard another family talk about tubing on the river.